Hello everybody, this is Jason Heires. I actually received a message for somebody asking me why it's been so long since I've done one of these. And I don't know, I guess part of it was, you know, I was kind of feeling it out to see if there was anybody that was still interested in this. And at least there's one person, which is better than none. Today I'm going to talk about an album by Iggy Pop. It's called Free, and this is the album cover right here. And after the last album that Iggy Pop did, which was called Post-Pop Depression, which was a really, really good album where he collaborated with Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, Iggy kind of came out and said that he probably wasn't going to release any more albums. And it's kind of funny, but he released this album. Now, this album is not a typical Iggy Pop record. And there's kind of two sides of Iggy Pop that we kind of need to talk about a little bit. There's the Iggy Pop, the godfather of punk, the wild and crazy guy who did just about anything under the sun that you can think of. And then there's the other guy, the intellectual guy, whose real name is James Osterberg. This is the guy who, ran for class president in high school. And there's kind of these two people. There's a more kind of a contemplative version of Iggy Pop, and kind of a more kind of jazzy and a more sophisticated side, maybe. I don't know if that's the best word to use, but a more intellectual side or a more contemplative side of Iggy Pop. And this album really reflects that contemplative side of Iggy Pop. There's been a couple of albums that kind of do this over the years. The first one is called Avenue B, which is a really good album if you've never heard it. A lot of people didn't know what to make of it when it came out because it was a pretty radical departure from what Iggy does normally. And then he did a couple other albums. He did one called Apres, A-P-R-E-S. I'm terrible at French. Maybe it was Apres. And there was another one that for some reason the name is eluding me right now. But there's been about three. This is going to be basically the fourth one of these kind of albums that Iggy's done. And this one is a good album. It has some really interesting songs. The first thing is that music-wise, guitars are pretty minimal. There's a guitar player named Noveller who plays on this, and she's also played on. She opened for Iggy on a couple of shows on some tours and things like that. And she does this kind of a guitar layering technique. And what she does is she plays these little bitty riffs, and then she uses basically an effects pedal, and she layers these little riffs, and they play back on each other. So they continually play over and over again, and then she throws another one on top of them, and she builds this kind of soundscape. And you have Iggy kind of reciting some different things over this soundscape. Some poetry from people like Lou Reed or even Dylan Thomas is on this. The other thing is there's a lot of trumpet on this album. And the trumpet really adds a lot in terms of it gives it a very much of a jazz flavor, which at times this almost feels like Miles Davis's In a Silent Way a little bit, if you've ever heard that album. So it's a really interesting layer, and it has a lot of very subtle inflections. And there are some very good songs on this album. Love's Missing, which is track 2, is very good. Sonali is a good, solid album. James Bond, which was the lead single, is a good album. There's a little bit where, it's mostly just Iggy speaking poetry, and the songs are pretty simple. The album clocks in at 35 minutes, which is relatively short. But that's kind of been the tendency with albums lately, as people have been moving back to records from CDs. because records just don't have the time that CDs do. You can throw 70 minutes on a CD, but you can't on a record. If you're going up over 60 minutes on a record, you're getting into double disc land. And while people obviously are moving back towards records, moving to double records, double albums, I don't think is quite so excitable for people. I don't know if you just heard that thunder cracking in the background, but there was a storm moving in when I first came in. But anyway, this is a really interesting album by Iggy. But if you're looking for like the high energy punk rock Iggy, this is not an album for you. If you're looking for something that really represents the intellectual side and the contemplative side of somebody like Iggy Pop, this is an album for you. And this really shows once again the thing that is the kind of the unspoken thing about Iggy Pop that if you don't follow him extensively, you don't really pick up on, which is he's actually very intellectual, and he has a really great gift of saying incredibly complex things in very simple language. And that's one of the things that, that people just don't think about when they think of Iggy Pop. They just think of him as a wild rock star who throws himself all over the stage and smeared peanut butter on himself and all the other crazy anecdotes that he did over the years as a rock star. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. I appreciate you guys watching this, and let me know if you want more, because, I'll give it to you if you want it. Thank you. Bye.